Hey there, it's episode 14, and today we bring your AI game to a new level. Seriously. Take a look. Today we begin using Model Context Protocol, and that's a very powerful feature. We need to understand how AI models access external resources, and how we let them do more. Let's begin. So, first quick reminder, models are very smart but also very limited. Basically, only thing they do is they receive some input, like prompt, usually text, and they return some output, again, usually text. They cannot access your files, they cannot do console commands, all those things, no. Agents do it, so killer code in this case, doing that for the models. How it works? There is a system prompt, you remember it from the first episodes, and in this system prompt there is a description of tools. So what tools model can use? Read file, write file, ask question, execute console command, all those things. Kilo provides this list of tools to the model, and then model decides what to do something to solve your problem. Find a bug, for example, it needs to create a new file. It will ask Kilo to use the tool, write to file, then a new file with some debugging will be created, for example. Now, there is a problem. We need more tools. Kilo provides a lot of tools, I believe around 2 dozen by now. But still, there are so many APIs and so many things what can be done. And we want to have more, so maybe now Kilo should implement 100 more tools. Here we come into a problem. I work with GitHub, all my code on GitHub. Maybe you work with GitLab or Bitbucket or something else. I work with Apache Cassandra. Maybe you go with Postgres. We want our models to be able to communicate with databases as well. And more and more and more. So we don't want to spam system prompt with all those tools, which you are not going to use. And the second problem is, now there are a lot of agents. There is a killer code, there is a Cloud code, Gemini CLI, and so on and so forth. What all of them would need to implement those tools, that would definitely be a lot of duplicate work. Now, let's all solve it. How? Here comes Model Context Protocol. Model Context Protocol is an open source standard developed by Anthropic, famous company well known for Sonnet, Opus, all those powerful models. So it's an open source standard to connect AI models to external resources in a simple, unified way. How it works? Now, every API provider can develop its own MCP server. I explain in a moment. And then this MCP server can be used by any AI agent, like Killer Code, all the others, to make calls to those APIs. For example, Amazon Web Services can deliver their own, Supabase can deliver their own, GitLab, and those MCP servers can be used by any agent which understands Model Context Protocol. So really cool, no duplication, works much better. MCP server, I mentioned it before, is basically a pretty simple program that exposes tools to AI agents. For example, if I enable GitHub MCP server, we will do it today live, then my AI model will receive additional list of the tools it can use to communicate with GitHub. So create issues, merge pull requests if you grant such permission, which I would think about maybe not giving such permission, but well, still you can if you want. So MCP server gives list of available tools and resources to agent, so it will be included into the system prompt. And then if model decides to use such tool, therefore it will make proper API calls or do whatever you want, whatever is requested. That's the idea of the MCP server. And as always, talk is cheap. Show me the code. Let's jump into VS Code and begin installing MCP servers. Installation of MCP servers in Killer Code is super simple. I go to settings and I find tab MCP server here, and I get directly to MCP marketplace. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands of MCP servers by today. So I can't show you all of them. I'm going to show you two I use the most. First one, easiest to install, so we will begin with, is Context7. It's an MCP server by Upstash. It does very interesting thing. Context7 is a library of documentation for different tools, frameworks, libraries you are using, that provides up-to-date documentation to the model. Let me explain. Usually models have some gap between the moment you use them and the moment they've been trained. For example, some model could have been trained half a year ago, and now, half a year later, documentation is outdated. That gets incredibly important if, for example, a new version of your favorite framework has been released, and model tries to use outdated documentation it's been trained on without access to new features, without access to new tools, and obviously it's not going to generate code you're gonna need. Let's install Context7 MCP server, which provides quick, convenient access for AI models to up-to-date documentation. So here is my Context7. I push install button. Now you have to decide, do you want to install it for project or do you want to install it globally? In general, I highly recommend to install everything project-wise. Why? Because for this project, you will need Context7. For another project, you will not need Context7. Documentation hasn't changed for a while and model works nicely. Then you don't need it. But the tools it provides will be included into the system prompt. So they will be taking some of your context just for nothing. Only if you truly honestly use these MCP server in all your projects, when I suggest to move it to global. But in general, my recommendation always begin with project scope. It doesn't hurt. Then installation method. How are we going to install it? There are few tools available. Usually it all will be between locally installed, so some script or a Docker container, or remotely install it running somewhere. The point is MCP server is a program. It needs to run somewhere, or it's going to be your computer, or it's going to be some remote computer. With Context7, easiest way to use it is a remote server. As long as it's available via internet, I've met some downtimes before. So in some cases, you might prefer, even if remote server is available, still want to install it locally. But if you want to install it locally, as it's a JavaScript, you will need Node.js installed. Usually remote work pretty well for me. Hope it will be this way also during this demonstration. So, and I push installation button and Context7 has been installed. That's it. Very simple. Now take a look what actually happens behind the scene. You are the engineer, or at least going to be an engineer, so you need to understand how it works. There is a file appear to be. We can see there is an MCP JSON file, what is in kilocode folder. It's happened to be here because we have a local project specific installation. You can add this MCP JSON file to Git, and then it will be the same configuration for all your team if you have such. And here we have MCP server configuration, which describes what we have. MCP server Context7, it's streamable HTTP type, and that's URL on how do we access it. So we can begin using that. How do we use it? Idea is very simple. I can ask just in the beginning of work, load latest React Router documentation using Context7. In this case, model will use my MCP server and will load this documentation, and it will be up-to-date documentation for React Router. So first it wants, as you see, it wants to use a tool on Context7 MCP server. I want to check what is it. So it's going to resolve library ID. MCP Context7 provides two tools. Resolve library ID, so find library name. And then second one will be, it will be used right now, so load documentation. So website's React router, yeah, it's going to get this documentation and related snippets, explanations on how to use this and that. That's loaded, that will stay in a context. It's up to date, and now in this context, will model already understand most recent documentation for this specific React router library. It become incredibly useful if you are working with something what model doesn't know, or something that model knows, but it's outdated since model was trained. Very cool. Let's see on the internals of a Context7 settings. We return to MCP servers and we go to install it tab. What can we do here? That's our Context7, and we can do following things. First of all, we see it provides access to two resources. Resolve library ID is used to find related documentation, what you are going to use, and get library docs is executed when you are fetching this documentation. Then you can disable this MCP. So it will get marked as disabled true, and it will be excluded from system prompt. I want to enable it back. You can delete it. Well, I will keep it for now. And then if you open it, you can do some allowances and configurations. You can say allow always. So resolve library ID is a pretty safe action. I want it to be allowed always. And in case you don't want some tools to be enabled, you are not going to use them, you can switch them completely. So we get into disabled tools. Please notice, for Context7, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But for some other MCP servers we are going to use today, it will be a big deal. So there can be much more tools than just two. One more reminder. Those things, they are not magic. That's very simple. Everything we do, it's just getting added into the system prompt. So I can copy this system prompt. I will create a new file for us. System prompt.md. I can insert it here. And I can search. And Context7, and we see what there is a Context7 in the list of Connect MCP servers. It's added into system prompt. It will get to the AI model. There are instructions on when to use it, what are the available tools, what's the process, and so on and so forth. If I disable it, of course, then this part will be removed from system prompt. Well, very well. Now, another tool I use all the time, which will require slightly more advanced configuration, is GitHub. I work all things GitHub. Everything I do is on GitHub. And of course, I want my model to access GitHub often. Let's take a look at that. So, I go to MCP servers. It's first on the list for a reason. It's indeed used by so many people. It's official GitHub's MCP server developed by GitHub. We can push install button. And now we have much more questions to answer. So project, still project-wise, I'm fine with that. But actually for the demonstration purposes, let's do it global and well. For me, it's a pretty nice set. In the prerequisites, there are two things. You will need a GitHub account and Docker. Why Docker? GitHub MCP is distributed only as a Docker image. So therefore, you need to have Docker installed to use it. I have, and I guess you too. But what's important here is you will need your personal access token. How to get one? I'm going to GitHub, and here in the settings, will be part developer settings. In developer settings, I have personal access tokens. I go for fine-grained tokens. It provides much better security. I will generate a new token to use. Now, MCP demo. Resource owner me, expiration I want to set very short. I will delete this token anyway immediately. Now, we need to specify permissions, and that's important. Without proper permissions, token will not work, and GitHub MCP cannot do its job. So I want to add repositories. And I will specify projects I work with. So it will be, for example, this my Grafana Cassandra data source. Now I want to add permissions. What this token will be allowed to do. This part can be changed later. Right now I will demonstrate work with issues, so I will add only issues. In general, keep it as limited as possible. And I want to read and write issues. This way, this token, my MCP server, will be allowed to create issues and read issues, delete issues with this specific repository. Maybe you want to have more advanced permissions, but be careful. In general, we want to have here as less as possible. So I will generate this token. It will work with read and write for this repository. And it's done. I'm going to copy it and I will return and paste it here. If you are concerned, here we can set GitHub toolsets. I keep it full. And here, in case you are not completely trust here what's happening or work with some super private data you don't want to be modified without your not manually, you can set one and mark it as a GitHub read only. For now, we will go for false. I want it to do something for me. So now I push install. It's successfully installed. And we can take a look on how it looks here on my in my file. So it's in different folder. It will be, as it's a global storage, it will be in VS Code space available for all the projects. It also structure of a file is exactly the same, MCP servers. But this one is going to be executed with Docker with all the required arguments. And delivers required information of what is a token, what are the toolsets allowed, what's a read-only mode. Read-only mode is 0, everything is allowed. That's it. So let's check the settings for this. So as you see, I will switch off Context7 for now and keep only GitHub. As you see, GitHub provides 67 tools, 5 resources, and you might want to allow some of them. For example, always allow to write a comment. And you might want to disable some of that. Maybe you want to disable add pull request review. In general, I suggest switching off tools you are not going to use. I will never assign Copilot to issue, so I want to switch it off. Therefore, my system prompt will not blow up. And I'm not using Kilo and I'm not using MCP servers to manipulate workflows, so I also can switch off all those things. Create and submit pull request. That can be very valuable, but I don't want to have it always allow. I want to confirm it manually. This way, you can scroll through our tools and decide if you want them or you don't want them. So, how do you use that? Idea is very simple. You can just ask Now model to do something with your GitHub. So I can do, for example, create a GitHub issue to update dependencies. So first thing here, GitHub MCP will struggle a little bit because it needs to know which repository it's going to work with. First, it tries to read package JSON file to find repository. I don't have actually repository specified where. So it got it. Oh, very well. And now it's going to, as we see, create an issue. By the way, we can say always allow to create issue, but I want to review it first. Update project dependency. Very nice. So we can say approve. Looks like it worked. So now we can switch back to GitHub. Return to my repository. And 7 issues were definitely were 6. Yeah. So, congrats. Update project dependencies. It's me because it's my personal access token is used. Open it just now. We can open those update project dependencies and see overview, current state, there are Grafana packages, all the things what needs to be updated. And pretty decent GitHub issue from my point of view, specifying the things what can be done. So not bad at all. Good job, Clouda. Good job, GitHub. And it all was done right from my killer code, and I love it. So take a look. MCP is more than a tool. MCP is a way to connect anything what has API, file system, databases, cloud providers, basically everything. To connect it with every agent, with killer code, but also Cloud code, Qwen code, whatever tool you are using, it should be able to use MCP. It's the incredible way to interconnect things in our fast-paced, very quickly developing world. That's incredible. Friendly reminder, MCP servers are very powerful things, but they don't come for free. Each MCP server you have enabled will add something to your system prompt. Some a little bit like Context7 and some a lot like GitHub. So if you don't use it, you better disable it. That's definitely very important. Now, that's episode 14th, and I'm really, honestly, very proud of you. You learned so much. We went through how models being used by agents and agents works with models. We went through prompts and modes, custom rules, all these tuning you can do with custom rules, how providers work and what are inference providers, what are tokens. Most important part for me, context management. It's very important for successful AI-assisted development. And actually, so much more. We did an incredible job. I'm really happy we went this path together. Now, unfortunately, this episode ends the first season. So there will be not new videos here. Maybe we will meet again. I will be very happy to meet with you again. Maybe there will be a second season coming later. If you want to have more like this, write to hi@killercode.ai and tell what you want more, what you want season 2. I will be very glad to meet you. But whatever happens next, eventually we will meet each other again. And one last thing I wanted to tell you. Never stop learning.